I'm back at it again doing my favorite things in Overwatch, exploring the maps. Overwatch 2 has added a bunch of fun new maps to look through, and I want to take a look at some of the maps that I didn't talk about last time. So without further ado, let's see what there's to find. A fun one to start with is here New Queen Street, which doesn't have much to talk about except for this weird object under this building. It looks to be some scrapped background detail that was meant to be here. We can see a similar scrap building here in Numbani, but rather than being under the map, it is inside this building, which when you take a look inside, it looks strange to say the least, but it's very interesting to see that they just left it here. And Numbani has even more of this. Behind the text for the airport, there's another set of exactly the same text inside the wall. And the scrap thing in the vein of this is here in Temple of Anubis. If you remember in my first video, they had the old capture point below point B. But going into Overwatch 2, for some reason the capture point for point A has appeared under the map too, which is very weird, but I really love seeing this stuff just randomly resurface. But there are even more random gameplay elements under a map, like here in Paris. Everything looks normal until I check under this building. And would you look at that, it's a bunch of health packs that are just randomly placed down here. Which is strange to say the least, but at least you know Paris has more health packs than you can see. A less noteworthy thing in Paris is here in this corner, which is a very mysterious and striking corner, especially with all this art they did. But if I take a look through this wall, you can see some type of scanner, which was likely meant to be placed on the wall to give the idea you gotta scan a card or something to get inside. Underneath here in Ilios Lighthouse, there's this weird unused door frame, which I don't have much to say about, except it's just neat to see a door frame just hanging out down here. But something a bit more interesting is here in Ilios Ruins. If I go behind the wall here, you can see what seems to be two scrapped flank routes. It's really cool to see the remnants of two flank routes that used to be here, since it's rare something so big like this is left over. Here in Horizon Lunar Colony, there's this telescope you can use, and you can see this image of the Earth when you look through it. But of course, a good question is, how do they create this effect? So if we go to this outside area of Horizon Lunar Colony and then go down, when we have gotten far enough, look what it is. It's that image of the Earth from the telescope, which means this is where your camera gets set to whenever you're looking through the telescope. A very interesting new thing to me that happened here in Gibraltar are these random floating props, which are completely new to Overwatch 2. So a question I asked looking at these is, are they meant to be used for something? It's strange placing some of these items in so intentional locations, since in reality, they're just floating in midair. But let's take a break from looking at misplaced props, and take a look at Overwatch's newest map, Talantis, which at the surface doesn't seem to have a skybox. But if I go outside the orb this map is inside, we can see these beautiful northern lights, which you might recognize from somewhere, which is of course an Arctic peninsula. And before we go take a look at that map, let's enjoy a quick look outside Talantis. Peninsula is a very cool new map, since it added stuff like these penguins. And something fun if I go up to these penguins up here. A lot of these background penguins are actually 2D textures, to really create the feeling of there being loads of penguins up here. A very fun striking background to me is here in Blizzard World, where you in the background can see this entire theme park. Let's take a close look how they create this fun background. And what better way to start than take a look at the people on the rides. It's these very square human models to create the feeling of people being on these rides. But normally of course they go past us so fast and also so far away that we never see how square they truly are. And another fun place you can see these square people are up here, in the Overlord ride. But we got another attendance type in Blizzard World. We got these very low quality figures. And you're probably thinking, who are these pixelated figures meant to be? Well, if you take a close look, you can see it's actually a very pixelated version of Soldier 76 A-posing. Eichenwalde is a very iconic location in Overwatch. And if I go up to the top of the towers of the castle, you can see these cool spires. But a weird oddity is that some of these are untextured, because as you can see here, this one is textured, while some are just a plain grey color. And going even further behind the castle, we got this. A floating rock which my friend Hazelet found and named it Turgo. So Blizzard, please don't remove Turgo. Eichenwalde also has a really cool trick they use inside the castle. They create what's supposed to be the illusion of the outside. But when we take a look up here, it's just a big blue texture. And a similar effect is used inside the first attacker spawn room, where they also have this blue texture just encasing the roof. And of course it's the same in the Atlas Brune version of this map too. But since we're here anyway, might as well show you something else Atlas Brune has, which is of course Junkenstein's monster. And if we take a look under the cloth, we can see they only have the feet and the arm of the monster. But that isn't the most interesting thing Atlas Brune has to me. It has this windmill in the background, which is so far away that they just gave it a solid stone texture across everything. Something very striking about Midtown is these cars that are floating in the sky. And taking a look up here, you can see how simple these models are. Which does make sense since there's so many of them. Esperanza is one of my favorite leftovers in the game. If I look at this building from this angle, you can see what is a leftover depth texture. But thankfully it's only one-sided, so in normal gameplay, you will never see this texture. But whenever you go into this room from now on, just enjoy the fact you know there's a depth texture. And another place you can find this depth texture is here at the final point of Circuit Royale. And it's just under the staircase. And it's just one long grey depth texture. A cool leftover object is here in the first Defender spawn. Going into the roof, you can see these weird lights that they just left up here. Going back to Temple of Anubis, one of my favorite random out of bounds objects is this vase inside a wall of Temple of Anubis, which my friend Clear Together showed to me, which was given the name Al Jara by a former Blizzard dev. So whenever you feel like playing 2CP, just remember this vase is watching you. Something I have a feeling people would like to see is this mining operation in Shambhala, which is a good bit away in the background. This is just such a cool detail to show what people are doing here in Nepal. And to finish it up, here's one of my favorite map inconsistencies. You can see inside the Lapis Maximus, there's this hole in the top of the roof. But if we take a look at the roof from the outside, you can just see they have the hole covered, which is really interesting to see. But anyway, that's it for me. And thank you to Hazelet and Clear Together for helping me find a lot of this stuff too. Their Twitters are in the description as always. In general, I just love looking through all these maps because there's such an insane amount of detail that gets put into every single map. So trying to break it a bit and look outside of it is so cool. But that's it for me again. So as always, have a good one everyone.